Frequency of Power. Episode 1. The Summons. The bass line vibrated through the soundproof walls of Midnight Productions as Zara Williams adjusted the levels on her mixing board. It was 2 a.m. on a Wednesday, and while the rest of Atlanta slept, she was exactly where she wanted to be, in control, independent, free. "That's it," she murmured, her fingers dancing across the controls. The track she'd been producing for 3 weeks finally had the depth she'd been chasing. Something about the layered frequencies felt different, powerful in a way she couldn't quite explain. Her assistant and best friend Tiana poked her head through the studio door. "Z, you've been at this for 14 hours straight. Even musical geniuses need sleep." Zara didn't look up from the board. "Sleep is for people who don't have a deadline with Sony on Friday." "Sleep is also for people who want to keep their sanity." Tiana walked in and set a cup of coffee on the console. "Also, you've got like 20 missed calls. Someone named Kai keeps blowing up the business line." At the name, Zara's hands stilled on the controls. Kai. She hadn't heard that name in almost 5 years. Not since she'd left Crescent Moonpack territory and never looked back. "Tell him I'm unavailable," Zara said flatly. "I did, 3 times. He said it's urgent, something about your family." Zara's jaw tightened. "I don't have a family. Not anymore." Tiana knew better than to push, but her expression was worried. "Z?" He sounded really serious. Maybe just... No. The word came out sharper than intended. Zara took a breath, softening her tone. "T, you know I love you, but that part of my life is over. I'm not going back there, not for anything." What Tiana didn't know, what nobody in Atlanta knew, was that Zara wasn't just running from bad memories. She was running from a truth that had nearly destroyed her. In the supernatural world of werewolf packs, there was nothing more shameful than being wolfless, and Zara Williams, daughter of the pack's most respected beta family, had failed to shift. At 19, when every other wolf in her generation had embraced their animal form, Zara had stood in the ceremonial circle and felt nothing. No transformation, no wolf, no future in the only world she'd ever known. The pack's pity had been worse than their judgment. The whispered conversations that stopped when she entered a room. The way former friends suddenly didn't know what to say to her. The way her own father couldn't meet her eyes. So she'd left. Took her trust fund, moved to Atlanta, and built a life where being wolfless didn't matter. Where her worth wasn't determined by something she couldn't control. And she'd been happy. Successful, even. Midnight Productions had a client list that would make established studios jealous. She drove a Tesla, lived in a penthouse, and answered to no one. "All right," Tiana said, reading the closed-off expression on Zara's face. "I'll tell him you're not interested. But Z, whatever happened back home, you know you can talk to me about it, right?" Zara finally looked up, managing a small smile. "I know, and I appreciate you. But trust me, that chapter is closed." Tiana nodded and left, and Zara turned back to her music. But the creative flow was broken. Kai's name had stirred up memories she'd worked hard to bury. She was about to pack up for the night when her phone buzzed. Not a call this time. A text from an unknown number. "Zara, it's Kai. I know you don't want to hear from me, but this can't wait. Alpha Williams is dead. Your father is asking for you. The succession ceremony is in 48 hours. Please come home." Zara stared at the message, her heart racing. Alpha Williams. Dead. The man who'd led Crescent Moon Pack for 30 years, who'd known her since she was a child, who'd looked at her with such disappointment when she failed to shift. Her thumb hovered over the delete button. She didn't owe them anything. Not anymore. Another text came through. Zara, the pack is in chaos. Rogue attacks every night. We need all hands. Your father needs you. She closed her eyes. Her father, Benjamin Williams, the man who'd raised her to be strong, to stand tall, to lead. The man who'd barely spoken to her after her failed transformation. Not my problem, she whispered to the empty studio. But even as she said it, she knew she was lying to herself. Zara made it home to her penthouse and poured herself a glass of wine. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of Atlanta's skyline that usually calmed her. Tonight, it did nothing. Her phone buzzed again and again. Kai wasn't giving up. With a frustrated sigh, she answered. What part of I'm not interested is unclear to you? The part where your pack is dying and you're too stubborn to care. Kai's voice was rough, exhausted. Look, I get it. They treated you like garbage. You had every right to leave. But Zara, this is different. We're not talking about hurt feelings. We're talking about survival. Find someone else to guilt trip, Kai. I'm sure there are plenty of proper wolves who can help. There are no proper wolves left, his voice cracked. We've lost 12 pack members in the last month. 12. The rogues are organized, Zara. They're hunting us. And with Alpha Williams gone, we don't have the leadership to fight back. Zara's grip tightened on her wine glass. 12 deaths. That was significant. Packs didn't just lose members like that, not without serious problems. Who's taking over as Alpha? She asked, hating herself for caring. Marcus Stone. The name hit her like a physical blow. Marcus Stone, the Alpha's son, 6'3" of pure dominance and traditional pack values. He'd been away at some Alpha training program when she'd left. They'd been not quite friends, but not enemies either. He'd been one of the few who hadn't treated her differently after her failed shift, at least not to her face. Marcus will handle it, Zara said. He was born for this. He's 28 years old and he's never led during a crisis. Kai's voice dropped. Zara, I'm not just calling as a pack member. I'm calling as your friend. I know I should have done more when you were going through hell. I know I failed you. But please, don't let my mistakes cost innocent lives. Zara wanted to hang up, wanted to block the number and forget this conversation ever happened. But 12 deaths. Children probably, elders, people she'd grown up with. If I come, and that's a massive if, I'm not staying. I show up for the ceremony, pay my respects, and I'm gone. That's all I'm asking. And Kai, I'm not doing this for the pack. I'm doing it for the people who didn't have a choice about being born into this life. Don't mistake this for forgiveness. Understood. Relief flooded his voice. The ceremony is Friday night. I'll text you the details. Zara ended the call and drained her wine glass. What was she doing? She'd built a whole new life specifically to get away from this world, and now she was voluntarily walking back into it. Stupid, she muttered. This is so stupid. But even as she said it, she was pulling up flights to North Carolina. The drive from Charlotte Airport to Crescent Moon territory was exactly as Zara remembered, winding mountain roads, dense forest, and an increasing sense of isolation from the human world. Packlands were always remote, easier to hide what you really were. Her rental car's GPS lost signal about 20 miles out. Of course it did. The pack didn't exactly advertise their location. But Zara didn't need GPS. Her body remembered the way. Even without a wolf, she'd been raised here. These mountains were in her blood. As she crossed into pack territory, she felt it, that subtle shift in the air that said she was entering supernatural space. Most humans would feel vaguely uncomfortable and turn back. Werewolves felt it as a welcoming embrace. Zara felt nothing, just like always. The main compound came into view, a collection of buildings that looked rustic from the outside but were state-of-the-art within. The pack house stood in the center, a massive lodge where the Alpha family lived and pack business was conducted. Zara parked her rental among the dozens of other vehicles. The ceremony was tonight. She'd timed it perfectly. Get in, show her face. Get out. But as she stepped out of the car, she heard it. Whispers. Pack members she'd known her whole life, staring at her, talking about her. Is that really Zara Williams? I heard she's some big shot in Atlanta now. Still wolfless, though. What's she even doing here? Probably came to see if Alpha Marcus needs a. Finish that sentence and you'll regret it. Kai appeared beside her like a guardian angel, his expression fierce. He'd filled out since she'd seen him last, all lean muscle and protective energy. His dark skin was marked with new scars, evidence of the fights he'd mentioned. It's fine, Zara said quietly. I expected this. It's not fine. You're Beta family. You deserve respect. I'm wolfless Beta family. There's a difference. Kai looked like he wanted to argue, but Zara was already walking toward the pack house. She'd promised herself she wouldn't care what they thought. She'd spent 5 years building armor against exactly this situation, but God, it still hurt. The pack house doors opened before she reached them, and there, backlit by the interior lights, was her father. Benjamin Williams looked older than she remembered, more gray in his hair, deeper lines around his eyes. He was still powerfully built, still carried himself with the authority of a beta, but there was a weariness to him now. Zara, he said, and his voice cracked on her name. Dad. She kept her voice neutral, professional, like they were business associates, not family. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. 5 years of silence, of hurt, of words unsaid. Zara had imagined this reunion 1,000 times. Sometimes she yelled, sometimes she cried, sometimes she just walked away. In reality, she did none of those things. Thank you for coming, her father said finally. I know it wasn't easy. Kai said you needed all hands. I'm here for the ceremony. Then I'm leaving. Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, maybe. Regret. Of course. The ceremony starts in an hour. You can use your old room to freshen up if you'd like. I'll stay out here, thanks. Zara don't. She held up a hand. Please, let's just get through tonight. Her father nodded slowly, then retreated back into the pack house. Kai touched her arm gently. You okay? I'm fine. She wasn't, but she would be. She always was. Where's this ceremony happening? The clearing. Same place as always. He hesitated. You should know. There's going to be a challenge. Zara's eyebrows rose. Someone's challenging Marcus for Alpha? No, but tradition says the new Alpha must prove his strength. And with the rogue situation, Kai trailed off, but Zara understood. Marcus would have to demonstrate he could protect the pack, which meant a very public display of power. Great, just what she needed, more reminders of what she wasn't. The ceremonial clearing was packed with pack members. Zara recognized most of them, though many had changed in 5 years. More scars, more weariness. The rogue attacks had clearly taken their toll. She found a spot at the back, away from the main crowd. She didn't want to be noticed, didn't want to make small talk, didn't want to explain where she'd been or what she'd been doing. The moon was full overhead, bathing everything in silver light. In werewolf tradition, succession ceremonies always happened under the full moon. Maximum power, maximum witness from the moon goddess herself. A hush fell over the crowd as the pack elders emerged from the tree line. 3 ancient wolves who'd been alive longer than anyone could remember. They moved slowly but with undeniable authority. Behind them came Marcus Stone. Zara's breath caught despite herself. He'd always been handsome, but 5 years and an alpha inheritance had transformed him into something else entirely. He was taller than she remembered, broader, moving with a fluid power that made people instinctively step back. His dark hair was longer now, pulled back from a face that was all sharp angles and controlled strength. His eyes swept the crowd, and for just a moment they landed on her. Even from across the clearing, she felt the impact of that gaze. Dark eyes that missed nothing, that assessed and categorized and remembered everything. Then his attention moved on, and Zara released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The eldest pack elder stepped forward, her voice carrying across the clearing despite her age. We gather under the moon's witness to honor Alpha James Williams, who led us with strength and wisdom for 30 years. His death leaves us diminished, but his legacy lives on in his chosen successor. Zara had heard the succession speech a dozen times at various ceremonies. It was always the same: honor the fallen, celebrate the new, bind the pack together. Marcus Stone, son of our Alpha, trained in the old ways and the new. Do you accept the burden of leadership? Do you swear to protect this pack with your life? Do you promise to put their needs above your own desires? Marcus knelt, his head bowed. I do. Then by the power vested in me by the Moon Goddess and the Pack Council, I name you Alpha of Crescent Moon Pack. Rise, Alpha Stone, and claim your birthright. Marcus stood, and the pack's response was immediate. Every wolf there tilted their head back and howled. The sound was primal, powerful, a chorus of voices declaring their loyalty. Zara remained silent. She had no wolf to howl with. As the howling faded, Marcus's voice rang out. I accept this responsibility. I will lead with strength, I will protect with my life, and I will face any threat to this pack without fear. The crowd erupted in cheers. This was normally where the ceremony ended. The new Alpha would mingle, accept congratulations, solidify alliances. But Kai had warned her something else was coming. Marcus raised his hand for silence. However, I know many of you have concerns. The rogue attacks have shaken our confidence. You wonder if I'm strong enough to lead during this crisis. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This was unprecedented. Alphas didn't show weakness, didn't acknowledge doubt. So tonight, I won't just ask for your trust, I'll earn it. Marcus's eyes glowed gold as his wolf rose to the surface. Any rogue brave enough to enter our territory tonight will find me waiting. Consider this an open invitation. The crowd went wild. This was what they needed: visible, decisive action from a strong alpha. Zara felt sick. This was reckless. Brave maybe, but reckless. Rogues who were organized enough to orchestrate coordinated attacks wouldn't fall for such an obvious trap. Unless that wasn't the point, unless Marcus was making a different statement entirely, not to the rogues, but to the pack, showing them he wasn't afraid, that he'd put himself on the line. It was a bold move, possibly a brilliant one, or possibly a fatal one. The ceremony dissolved into celebration, pack members drinking and laughing with a relief Zara could feel, even from the edges of the gathering. They wanted to believe Marcus could save them. They needed to believe it. Zara was about to slip away when she felt it. A pull, subtle but undeniable, like a thread connecting her to something in the crowd. Her head turned involuntarily, seeking the source, and her eyes met Marcus's. The world tilted. Everything else, the crowd, the celebration, the forest, faded to background noise. All Zara could see was him. All she could feel was this overwhelming, terrifying, impossible connection. No, no, this couldn't be happening. But she knew what it was. Every werewolf knew what the mate bond felt like when it snapped into place. The recognition that was deeper than thought, older than memory, soul calling to soul. Marcus's expression mirrored her own shock, His gold eyes widened, and even from across the clearing, she could see him mouth one word. Mate. Zara turned and ran. She didn't care how it looked, didn't care who saw. She had to get away, had to think, had to process what just happened. The mate bond with Marcus Stone, with the new Alpha. This was impossible. The moon goddess must have made a mistake. Mates were supposed to complete each other, balance each other. What kind of balance was there between an Alpha and a wolfless woman? She made it to the parking lot before Kai caught up with her. Zara, wait! Don't. She fumbled for her keys. I need to leave, now. You felt it, the bond. It wasn't a question. Everyone saw. Of course they did. The mate bond wasn't subtle when it first hit, especially not with an alpha involved. It doesn't matter. I'm leaving. You can't just leave. Do you know what this means? You're his mate. You're going to be... I'm not going to be anything. Zara finally found her keys. This is a mistake. Marcus needs a proper Luna, a wolf who can stand beside him, who can fight, who can what? Be strong? Zara, you're the strongest person I know. I'm wolfless, Kai. That's all anyone will see, all Marcus will see. Even as she said it, she felt him approaching. The bond made her hyper-aware of his location, his emotions. He was confused, shocked, and something else. Something that felt like disappointment? Zara, wait. Marcus's voice carried the unmistakable command of an alpha, not a request, an order. Every wolf in hearing distance would have frozen at that tone, would have submitted instinctively. Zara spun to face him, her eyes blazing. Don't you dare alpha command me. I'm not one of your pack members to order around. Marcus stopped short, clearly surprised. Most wolves couldn't resist an alpha command, but Zara had no wolf to submit. They stared at each other, and Zara could see him processing the bond, the implications, the complications. His expression was unreadable, but she could feel his emotions through the connection, confusion, concern, and underneath it all, a growing sense of what she'd been dreading, doubt. We need to talk about this, he said finally. There's nothing to talk about. This is obviously a mistake. The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. Then this is a first. Zara crossed her arms. Look, you seem like a decent guy, Marcus. You always were. But let's be realistic. You need a Luna who can help you lead, who can fight beside you, who can... shift, he finished quietly. You think I'm going to reject you because you're wolfless. Aren't you? The silence stretched between them. Around them, the entire pack had gone quiet, watching, waiting to see what their new alpha would do. Zara saw the moment Marcus made his decision, saw it in the way his jaw tightened, in the way his eyes went distant and cold. The pack needs stability, he said, and his voice carried across the clearing, making sure everyone heard. With the rogue threats and the transition of power, we can't afford uncertainty. Each word felt like a knife to Zara's chest, even though she'd known this was coming. A Luna must be able to protect the pack, must be able to fight beside the Alpha, must be... He paused and something flickered in his expression. Regret, maybe. Must be whole. There it was, the word that defined her in this world, incomplete, broken, less than. So, yeah, Zara said, her voice surprisingly steady. You're rejecting the mate bond because I'm wolfless. Good thing I never wanted it in the first place. She turned to get in her car, but Marcus wasn't done. Marcus Stone, Alpha of Crescent Moon Pack, formally reject the mate bond with Zara Williams. The words hit her like a physical blow. She'd expected it, had practically asked for it. But the reality was so much worse than she'd imagined. Pain lanced through her chest, through the bond that had barely had time to form before being severed. But Zara Williams had spent 5 years learning to bury pain, learning to show strength when she was breaking inside. She turned back to face him one last time. I, Zara Williams, accept your rejection. And then, because she couldn't help herself, good luck, Alpha. You're going to need it. She got in her car and drove away, didn't let herself cry, didn't let herself feel the bond dying inside her chest like a star collapsing. She made it about 20 miles before her radio started acting strange. The station she'd been listening to cut out, replaced by static. And then, through the white noise, she heard it. Voices. Multiple voices, speaking in languages she didn't recognize, all calling the same thing. Her name? Zara's hands tightened on the steering wheel as the voices grew louder, more insistent. The radio display glitched, showing impossible frequencies. The air in the car felt electric, charged with something that made her skin prickle. "What the hell?" she whispered. And then her phone rang. Unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Hello?" "Zara Williams." The voice on the other end was female, mature, with an accent she couldn't place. "We've been trying to reach you. You're in danger. They all are." "Who is this?" "Someone who understands what you are. Someone who can help you understand why you're not broken. You're not wolfless, child. You're something much more important." "I don't—" "The attacks on the pack. They're not random. They're looking for you, for what you can do. And now that you've been rejected, now that you're vulnerable, they'll come for you." Fear iced down Zara's spine. "Come for me for what? I'm nobody. I can't even shift." "You can do something far more powerful than shifting." The woman's voice was urgent. "Pull over. Look at your hands." "I'm not pulling over because some random—" "Look at your hands." Zara glanced down and nearly lost control of the car. Her hands were glowing, faint but unmistakable. A soft blue light pulsed under her skin in rhythm with her heartbeat. "What is this?" Panic crept into her voice. "It's your gift awakening. The rejection broke the last of your mental blocks. You've been suppressing this your whole life, thinking you were defective. But you're not broken, Zara. You're a conductor, and whether you like it or not, you're about to become the most important person in the supernatural world." The line went dead. Zara pulled over to the side of the road, her heart racing, her glowing hands trembling on the steering wheel. Behind her, back at the pack territory, Marcus Stone stood in the ceremonial clearing, watching the taillights of her car disappear. His wolf was howling inside his chest, screaming at him for rejecting their mate. But he'd done what was necessary, what was best for the pack, even if it killed him. In the trees surrounding the clearing, eyes watched, waited. The rejection had been felt by more than just pack members. And in a dark room hundreds of miles away, a figure smiled as they felt the rejection echo through supernatural channels. "Finally," they whispered, "she's vulnerable. Send the first team." To be continued. What did you think of episode 1? Leave a comment below and let me know. Episode 2, frequency coming soon. Zara discovers the truth about what she really is, while Marcus struggles to lead a pack that's falling apart. Don't miss it. Copyright Frequency of Power series. All rights reserved.